I'm hanging out with 3/4 of the guys from Cesspool of Corruption. Hey, gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Excellent, man. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. I'm really glad to have you guys on air today. This is a blast because, man, Gore House Productions has been killing it, putting out some great fucking brutal death metal, technical death metal. And then you guys come along with some awesome melodic technical death metal. And I don't mean to put a label on your guys' new album, which is Requiems of the Ignominious. Am I saying that correctly?
Ignominious.
Ignominious. I knew I'd butcher that. I'm the band name butcher, so I have a title to get away with it. But thank you very much for the correction. I might ask for that a couple times throughout the interview. But congratulations! This came out last week, August 6th, just in time for Bandcamp Fridays. How's the new release going for you guys?
I guess pretty good. I mean, it's gotten pretty good reception for the most part from what we've seen.
I mean, yeah, as far as I could tell, it's doing pretty well. I'm not sure what the Bandcamp's doing in terms of numbers or what the like physical stuff is, but I've been tracking the Spotify streams and stuff at least, and we seem to be doing pretty well there. I mean, I think we're
climbing up.
Yeah, it's been a steady climb every day. So I mean, people are at least sticking with it. Those that are listening. I mean, there's a little press here and there out there, but. Waiting to see what some more reviews say. Really waiting for feedback. That's what I'm excited for right now. I'd say probably more feedback.
And what we've gotten so far with the feedback, it's been positive. So, and that's always cool to see.
Absolutely, and it's funny because one of our friends here at thatmetalstation.com, Mike Neely, who also does Into the Pit with Annie, the website, he posted as soon as it came out, like, technical perfection. Just he was rave review about you guys. But it's kind of funny because that's how this interview kind of came to be, and I want to touch on it a little bit with Matt, because you put up a post the other day, not to throw you under the bus or anything, but it was on social media, so I'm going to do that. You kind of threw it out there like reviewers being a little bit scandalous, and we're not going to mention names or anything, but trying to get that press these days seems to be a little convoluted and a little bit scandalous, and it touches me deeply. And I'm going to say that straight out. It touches me deeply, right. But it pisses me the fuck off is what it really does, is when reviewers want to take advantage of the bands for a little bit of press. And that's kind of what you were touching on the other day. Somebody wanted to do a review, but they wanted a bunch of free merch. They wanted everything from you and nothing from them in return, type of thing. So that's kind of how this interview came to be, because I was like, fuck that, I'll interview you guys and I'm not going to ask for shit. Carlos from Gore House already sent me the CD, so but yeah, let's talk a little bit about you guys trying to get some press for this.
Well, I mean, I'd like to interject here just real quick. I just noticed here recently, we've got a few things and all that, but I mean, we worked with somebody previously that Carlos was having us send stuff for when they reissued our EP back in last December. And I had just like went back to some of that stuff and looked, and like there was just a decent degree of stuff that was out there before it even came out, around when it came out and beyond. And this is kind of, I guess, to me, been a little more skimmed here and there as far as I can tell. I mean, there's been some press and it's been, decent. And I just like to hear stuff, more of it, I guess, not necessarily for exposure is great, but I really just like that objective opinion, man. I like to hear what lots of different people say. That way I can get a lot of different angles that way. Because we've definitely been called some things so far for this new one that I never would have thought of being compared to. That's for sure.
Really? Such as what?
I mean, I'll let the other guys pick up on this. They said we all talked about it. What are some of the ones, guys?
Well, there was like abominable putridity. Somebody said that.
Yeah, abominable putridity was one.
And it's like no disrespect to them at all, but we don't sound like that band. We don't sound like abominable.
No, you don't.
Yeah. I would say like the most interesting thing to me is like how many people pick up like the brutal death aspect of it, because like that's like there are like some brutal death influences in our music, but it's not like the main thing. It's just kind of like sprinkled in there from time to time. But like I guess some people think it's pretty brutal. So I mean, it's always interesting to see how other people interpret your music. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But, it's not a bad thing. Not necessarily a bad thing. Just interesting.
Yeah, nothing bad there. Just some of the names got thrown out. I wasn't expecting. Decrepit Birth, I could definitely see. But I mean, they threw out Suffocation, Deeds of Flesh, Defeated Sanity, Ominous Ruin.
I don't get any of that.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. It's just interesting.
Absolutely. And if you guys want my opinion, I find it to be more of a melodic death metal on the techie side. It's a really fun album. There is some, you know, I genuinely love slam and brutal death metal. So, you know, when you guys throw out Abominable Putridity and compare it to Cesspool of Corruption, I don't see it, you know. There's some brutal vocals in there. There's you know, there's a couple breakdowns that are really good, but you guys aren't like a breakdown slammy band by any means. As a matter of fact, I find that, you know, whatever you guys are tuned to as far as guitars go, and the vocals, and just the way you put the music together, it's a fun album actually, because, you know, listening to slam while I'm at work or whatever, you know, I'm sitting there, my eyebrows are just clenched together and I'm doing the slammy thing. But when I've been listening to your album since it came out last Friday, I've been having fun with it. Like, I'm sitting there just kind of grooving and just banging my head to it. And, you know, the solos are fun. All of the intricate guitar work is a great fucking time. I find it interesting that you've been compared to AP like that, or other of the slam bands like Defeated Sanity and shit like that.
Yeah. I'd say the closest I said that worked for me was Decrepit Birth. Definitely see it. Suffocation at some of the nastier parts. Definitely could see some of that. But some of the other ones I just thought were pretty wild, man. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
So,
Abominable Putridity, that probably the farthest analogy from what Cesspool of Corruption is. And, you know, nothing against either your album or their music, but that's a hard analogy on my part. But let me ask you, when you guys were writing this music, and I know that you've probably been waiting a long time to put it out, especially with everything that happened last year and all that. When you were writing the music, what were you going for? And did you actually have a point that you wanted to kind of nail when it came to the music? What were you going for with it, you know?
Well,
Matt, start this one.
Blake, you want to go first? Or
No. By all means, you lead this one.
Okay. Well, I guess what I try to go for, I try to just blend all of my influences together into like one cohesive thing. Try to make it all work. Like I don't I don't want to just throw a bunch of random shit in there and then it doesn't flow or anything. But I'm trying to throw everything that I like and kind of put it in a blender, and that's what comes out. So I want it I try to go a little techie sometimes, little melodic. Sometimes some of the more, I don't know, if you want to call it breakdowns, I guess, I don't know, some of that sort of stuff. So I guess for me, Origin is a big influence on me. And then Origin and I know some people shit on them, but Black Dahlia Murder has been a big influence for me throughout the years. And Vehemence, I love that band a lot. So they're one of the bands that has had a big influence on me as far as mixing melody and heaviness together into one. So and then a little bit of Suffocation thrown in there. So I guess the main thing though is just trying to write songs that are catchy and memorable. Trying not to do too much of I don't want to do too much of the technical thing, too much of the melodic thing, too much of the brutal thing or whatever. I want to keep everything balanced. Just try to write some memorable stuff, I guess. And Death is a big influence on me in that regard and how I write music. I know we don't really sound like Death, but Death is definitely a big influence on how I approach songwriting.
That's awesome. I mean, Death was one of the first bands that got me into death metal back in the 90s, so I totally appreciate that. And yeah, I don't get a whole lot of Death from your album, but I could see where some of that influence would be, especially now that you've mentioned it. I'll probably go back and listen and hear, all right, I hear that. So.
More so in the songwriting approach, not necessarily in the way the riffs sound individually.
Sure.
Whatever, if that makes sense. So
absolutely. No, it totally makes sense. And what about the rest of you guys?
I'd say for me, man, I mean, definitely foundationally, Origin, Black Dahlia Murder is still there. I'd say that's like one of the concrete foundations of the band. Vehemence, of course, with the like some of the framing and all that. But it's other bands that I would have tried to throw in. Probably, definitely some of the Decrepit Birth is in there for me. Some of the Inferi, probably a little bit, maybe on like just sprinkled in like a song or so. Death is, there, I guess, in terms of like what Matt said, structure, and like for Death, I'd say also with Decrepit Birth, some of the harmonizing I chose to use. Definitely that as well. So I just try every once in a while, you get tired of using like the minor thirds and stuff, so you start to try and explore beyond that into some other stuff.
Nice. And you know what? I love the song structure. And it's something that I really appreciate about this album, because some of the albums that are coming out right now, and yeah, everybody can calm down and quit emailing me. I'm not throwing this out as a general thing. It's just some of the albums are every song kind of flows into each other and almost sounds the same. You guys really did a good job at not doing that with this album. Each song has its own flavor. It has its own personality, if you will. And I that's probably where I see more of your Death influences. Each song has its own personality as far as the guitar work and things of that nature go. Blake, as far as vocals go, how did you find yourself trying to mix it up a little bit, and what are some of your influences in the band vocally?
Vocally wise, I know Mike shares a pretty decent, like probably 50-50, I'd say, or so, of vocals with me. In terms of the part that I did, I definitely tried to add some extra tonal stuff and odd blending of extra tones and everything. That was a big part. I wanted to make it, I tried to make the patterns a little more elaborate, which has definitely presented, challenges when playing live. It's twice as hard to split the brain on a few parts here and there with everything that's going on. But I figured some of the patterning would end up being a little more following the music. And so with that in mind, since I thought some of the patterns wouldn't be as like, I don't know, Trevor style where he's just really all over the place, I tried to add a layering for emphasis and dynamic. And I tried to use a lot of different tones across the way, blending pretty much everything from like, lows, mids, highs, and then like odd mixtures of stuff in between. Just to make it more interesting. I figured that would spice it up and maybe make up for where some of the patterning might be kind of following the music more, since we're having to sing and play at the same time. Just naturally that rhythm's kind of being kept, I think, mentally. Vocal influence wise, I'd say Nathan from Vehemence, definitely one of them. Of course, a little Trevor in there.
Mm-hmm.
A big one, I think, and how I try to do a lot of the wild blending of styles was definitely Chalky. Like the first two Psychroptic albums, especially Scepter of the Ancients, I tried to do that kind of more off-the-wall approach in terms of tonality. And I'd say it was very, very much inspired by that performance from him. Nice. I was impressed how he did it, because he really made the vocals an instrument. And just you never could predict what that guy was going to do, man. So I would say a lot of that. Every once in a while, maybe a little like some Big Chocolate era Burning the Masses vocals. I can't quite go as beastly and cavernous as that guy, but
right. Well, it's interesting because you're talking about all these greats like Nathan. Nathan lives here in Phoenix, and he is the most wonderful person to speak with. I love talking to Nathan and Trevor and all the people that you mentioned. None of them have to play at the same time. They get to solely focus on vocals, whereas you also are handling guitars as well. So, I mean, it's very interesting that you find that blend out of straight vocalist when you're also a guitar player, in my opinion, just because I find it so interesting that people that can play instruments and sing at the same time, whether it be drums or guitars or bass. So, continue. Sorry.
Oh, definitely not an easy feat by any means. It's quite challenging. Some days I wonder, why do I do this to myself? But I find it pretty rewarding in the end.
Cool. And Mike, I'm going to ask you the same question, because you share vocals as well. Some of your inspiration and where were you trying to go with your vocal side of things?
I don't know. I guess inspiration. I don't know. I guess maybe like Suffocation influence, Camel Corpse, like Frank Mullen and Corpse Grinder. I don't know. I just kind of like, I just kind of like went out and just did my thing, and
I always got Paul Ryan feels for those.
Yeah, I just kind of
you got that screech.
Yeah, very like, Paul Ryan.
So like, I don't know. I figured since Blake was doing the thing with his vocals, I wanted to do a more raw approach, maybe, because I didn't want to overdo the like the layering and stuff like that, so I kind of, most of my vocals are just single track. I did a little bit, I double tracked a couple parts myself, but I don't know. I guess, like, I guess kind of that Black Dimer, Trevor Screech thing. I don't know. I just kind of started doing it one day, and the vocals, I don't know. It's weird to describe like how to do vocals. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Like, happens, I just kind of like, I'm like, man, I don't really know. I'm just like doing it, and whatever comes out. I mean, so it comes out. So, but yeah, like Blake was saying though, sometimes you tend to, is a person playing an instrument and doing vocals, you tend to like, in your head you're thinking about playing an instrument, and so then the vocal lines can maybe become a little, I guess, monotonous.
Yeah.
The vocals kind of become their own thing, and it's going to work itself out in the end.
Yeah, we took a different approach for this album to a degree. I think we've already agreed we're going to take a pretty much totally different approach for doing vocals on the next one, quite drastically different at least, and we'll see how that goes. Definitely maybe try to have a little more thought in terms of stuff mapped out this go around, I think, than more so than before, at least. And I guess one thing that I will say vocal was definitely always inspired for like Chuck for sure. I try to throw some of that when it goes to like the MIDI stuff. Definitely trying to do some of the Chuck stuff. And honestly, the Dallas Toller Wade thing, I always liked that dude's vocals. And so some of the like barky like mid stuff is definitely kind of gnarly and an ode to that guy. Love that dude's vocals. Super cool guy. Played with Nile a couple times at Trees down here in Dallas, and the first time he was one of the last tours he did with him, and he was one of the guys that actually had watched us and said something to us about it after the fact, which is always appreciated, man. Always.
That's an honor.
Niles know they're also another influence on us musically speaking. So yeah. I didn't mention them earlier when I was talking about writing, but there's definitely some songs more than others. There's definitely some major Nile influence sprinkled in there.
You got to have some Nile in there, man. I mean, fucking Nile's the shit. Yeah, absolutely.
Thing there too is like you mentioned tuning earlier. That's what we play on. We don't play on 6 strings, but we play in drop A, same tuning as Nile, but we just do it on 7 so that we have the higher string as well. So we have like the full range of a 6 string with the added low, which till we kind of get there to a degree, but we also get to do all those low, weird chords and drop that really let you explore some odd tonalities, man.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was something I wanted to bring up as well, is especially being that a lot of bands are comparing you to like AP and a lot of the slam stuff. You guys don't sound like, guitar wise, tonally, you don't sound like slam or brutal death metal. I mean, there's some great parts, don't get me wrong, but you have that little bit higher pitch. You can bring it down when you want to, and I kind of appreciate that, because I think down tuning is becoming a norm, and it's almost getting played out a little bit, unless you're like searching out slam bands, and in that case, of course, you want, drop D or whatever. And just to let you guys know, I don't play instruments. I'm actually ignorant when it comes to all that, but I have a lot of fans that are like, why don't you ever ask about their guitar tone? So, I have to throw in those questions. But if I say something totally ignorant and sounds stupid, that's because I don't know what I'm talking about. But because I don't play an instrument. But I did notice that in during listening to the CD, and it does. It sounds at more of a standard tone there. And I kind of appreciate that because too many bands, I think, are going with that drop tone. I like the idea of 7 and 8 string guitars because you can play in a standard and bring it down if you want to. And I think you guys do a really good job at it.
Yeah, and then that's like basically that's the whole reason we play on the 7s, because we like to have that low end whenever we want to like get heavy or whatever. But then for solos, you want to have that full range, you know, like more range, more options and stuff like that. So, but I mean, we try to use the whole fretboard and all the strings, you know, like some bands. I mean, like not going to name anyone in particular or anything, but like, you know, there's some bands out there, they get their 7 or 8 string guitars and, you know, they just chug on that low string, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather explore everything.
And we definitely do. Yeah, we use the lowest fret of the first string to the highest fret of the high E. There was a part on songs where the way it ended up harmonizing, and I liked how it was, and then going to record it, I didn't think about it in a certain way, and I had to bend the 24th fret and hit it from there, so it was actually had the pitch of a 25th fret, and then go back from there to hit the. So there's like a whole thing there, man. Like moving beyond the fretboard, even more so. And we definitely like a lot of those odd chord structures, man. I think a lot of that comes from like that origin, and then a big one we didn't mention as well. I know it's a fact. Planetary Duality era faceless. That is definitely all kinds of woven into this, and in more ways than one, but definitely some of those chords, and I think some of those kind of groovy parts with some of how the album works with some of the I don't know, almost kind of syncopated rhythmy stuff. Definitely kind of facelessy there, and that particular earlier era of the band, definitely around that time.
Yeah. And with that being said, I think you guys would probably agree with me on this one. Let's all hope Michael Keane gets well and gets back to it, because I miss the Faceless. I've seen them kick ass live on stage, and then I've seen one of their horrible shows, and I just wish him the best because I am a huge Faceless fan, and I can't wait for them to come back in full force and healthy. You know what I mean? We'll kind of leave it at that, but you know,
I agree.
Yeah. Big shout out to Michael Keane on that one. But
yeah, definitely.
I also want to ask, so you guys decided to I mean, you guys wrote the album obviously, but you did decide to have it tracked at Sam Recordings, SAM, if I'm saying that correctly. I know it's abbreviated.
That's it.
But yeah, you guys went out and had it tracked at a studio by Sam Paquette. Am I saying that correctly? Probably not.
Paquette. I believe it's Paquette is what it is.
Okay. All right. So tell me about studio time, because you did all the guitars and vocals there, but Brennan did his own thing with drums and then sent it over for mastering. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. He originally had recorded with Bryce Butler, who had done, you know, he'd been in the Faceless and toured with those guys and Shadow of Intent. Done with him because we had done scratch tracks. He went and he did those. We got him back, and then he ended up doing it himself again the second time after everything had been actually done to the metronome and the original drums, and kind of honed in. And it turned out really great, I think. It worked great for Nick too, apparently, as well. So we ended up doing pretty much everything else though with Sam, and then sent it off to Nick and Mark for kind of the finishing touches and getting all the tones and the levels and whatnot.
And that's Nick and Mark at Carptown Studios who did the mix and mastering?
Nick Wayers, Mark Burr. They did the mixing, the mastering, a lot of the editing to a degree. We tried to keep minimal editing with Sam. Tried to kind of keep it as I guess stripped down take wise as much as we could, and then kind of let Nick do a lot of that, like I said, that fine tuning if it was required, and then the tone chasing, the reamping, and all the levels and everything.
Nice. Hell yeah, I think it sounds amazing. I mean, whether you're using the CD, which, you know, everybody prefers a hard format like CD, or if you're listening on shitty Spotify, you know, it sounds good at work through my fucking headphones off my phone. You know, it sounds wonderful, and everybody did a really good job from tracking to mix and mastering on your album. You guys should be very proud of the way it came out, because I think it sounds awesome.
Appreciate it, man. We
thank you, man.
It took a long time. I mean, you're asking about that tracking process, and I'll let somebody else pick it up here in a second. But I can tell you this: from scratch tracking all the way through like finishing tracking, and it was a very drawn out process this go around. More so, which we had. Fun fact for like the throwback era, doing the EP before it was reissued when it was originally put out. We had actually done a bunch of recordings, finished it, and then went back and completely redid all of the stringed instruments and re-recorded all that stuff again before we ever put it out.
Wow.
So the tracking is
remixed.
Yeah, then it got remixed and remastered, which that was Nick yet again. We worked with them to reissue to take everything and kind of repolish it and spruce it up, do some different amps and all that. And we liked it. We liked what they brought out in the sound, especially with working with probably what at the time was very novice workmanship on our part. It was so new to everything. It was very trial and error along the way. Sure. Recording for us has kind of been that way. It's been a bit of an arduous journey figuring it out, but we've started to get pretty savvy with it these days.
Yeah, well, after tracking like a full album, you're like, fuck, this is like a lot of work, like a lot more than you really expect going into it.
Absolutely. I've been saying it to bands for years. All the technology's out there and all the equipment's at a point where it's inexpensive. You could do a lot of this from home. A lot of people are doing it, do it yourself. But that doesn't mean you're making good product. And some bands can do a great job at tracking and then sending it out for mixing and mastering, which if you can do that, I think is a great way to do it, because at some point you need to walk away from your own music and quit fucking with it and let a professional dick around with it for a little bit. You know what I mean? So,
it's funny you mentioned that. That's kind of one of the potential approaches we're considering for this next one coming up. We're all kind of setting up our own little recording setups and kind of working to do at least the scratch tracking ourselves. And hopefully, like I said, the plan is Brennan's going to give us at least raw drums back for that. Mm-hmm. And look to maybe create some tracks, send them to Nick, who will most likely work with yet again. And if it's, if we can make the cut and maneuver with all this new technology and kind of get savvy with this quick enough, then that is potentially the route we may take for the next one. Even more self-reliant, a little inspired by Brennan, because his drums came out great and he did it all himself. So
he did it in like one day too.
Yeah.
Really? No shit, he did it in one day. Fuck.
So
he's a fucking machine, dude.
He's a hot commodity too. Before we went live, I was like, well, I do want to talk to Brennan at some point, because I wanted to keep it about Cesspool, but when you bring Brennan in the mix, I'm like, I have other questions about other bands.
Right, yeah, and I wanted him on. I knew the three of us could do it, but he said he couldn't do it, and I was like, well, I want you on the interview though, because I know he's gonna want to ask questions or whatever. And Brennan was like, no, it's okay, just do it.
Yeah. I'll get Brennan on it if he's interested, of course. But his drums came out amazing, and if I had any advice,
that snare tone,
I know, right? But see, I've been watching a lot of his not playthrough videos, but just the videos that he records at home of him fucking around. And
snippet.
I love how basic his main set is, but he's got all the cymbals in the world, and he seems like a big cymbal artist when it comes to percussion. And I love his cymbal work. The cymbal work sounds so good on your guys' new album. I mean, you can hear the difference between every little ping. And it sounds amazing. His drums came out great.
Very dynamic drummer, and I can tell you this. I can at least attest to this in Brennan's absence. Dude, that's all some straight like Sean Reiner stuff right there. Death Era Human, the artist Spotlight we put out recently. That album is on there for him for that very reason. Definitely like that Richard Christie, Gene Hoglan, Sean Reiner, latter era death stuff. Like when we had originally found him when he was like 17, man. That's we'd hit him up and like we looked at him. Craigslist, Craigslist drummer.
Right on.
Like YouTube videos were death covers, like Scavenger of Human Sorrow and all kind of Crystal Mountain and all kinds of shit like that. And he had done a bunch of death, and that's kind of how we were like, dude, this definitely could be the guy. Because I can tell you what, the search for the drummer was the most arduous thing for this band for forever. I mean, we kind of like really came together and started doing it in person again in like May of 2012. We didn't get linked with Brennan until like September of 2014, played our first show live, in January of 2015. And man, finding drummers was an absolute nightmare for us. And so we just kept writing music. So a lot of what you're hearing is like coming from 2013 and beyond. Some of it even in like one of Matt's songs, which I'm sure he'll get to talk about, and we can I'll let him take the lead on that. But some of that stuff goes back even further. I mean, Humanoid in Form, which closed the EP, that goes all the way back to high school, like 2009, man.
Wow.
And like his songs is like not far after that.
That was like the first drop too. Like,
yeah.
We wrote it on this.
Yeah, fun story. Back in six strings, then drop C, Faceless again. Back to that. And we kind of just transposed everything back over to the sevens, you know, and just took it lower.
Made the song better.
It did, absolutely.
We added like the whole solo section at the end.
But a lot of that stuff, man, does come from that older era, and like, dude, finding him was a godsend because it was a nightmare, and a lot of what you're hearing is just the product, at least a huge majority of it, of us just writing and working together and saying, well, hey, we can't find anybody to play live with, so let's just keep doing what we can, and that's just keep writing super awesome fucking songs and just exploring a lot of influences, and that's a huge part of that sound on the album, which I think was why the comparisons kind of grind at me ever so slightly, because we've always tried to blend almost everything, man. Like catchy stuff, heavy stuff, brutal stuff, technical stuff, melodic stuff, a little dissonance stuff, some different song structure exploration, some more riff salads, some more structured, some recurring themes kind of in songs. We try to blend a lot of even little black metal parts here and there, like sprinkled in. We try to just kind of take everything we liked about nothing. Well, Requiems definitely has some like Blackened-esque parts in there. But we've tried to take a lot of what we love about so many different types of bands and just sprinkle it all throughout in one fine mixture.
Yeah, you know, and I think you guys do a fantastic job at it because, like I said, it's a fun album, and none of the songs sound the same, which, God, I appreciate so much. There's bands that I love that, you know, from the first beat to the last fucking guitar riff, 30 minutes later after the album, it's like sounds like one whole song. And there's albums that I do appreciate like that, but not a whole lot of them. So you have to be really good at it to make all of your songs sound the same and make it unique. But you guys do a really good job at separating each song. Like the opening song, Insidious Inheritance. Great fucking opening song. It's driving. It pulls you right into the album right off the bat. But, you know, Breeding Our Demise further on down the line, you know, completely different from the opening song. And you guys do a great job at keeping the variety going throughout the album.
We appreciate that, man. And I'll probably let Matt take the lead on this after I mentioned it initially. But you get a good mixture across the whole album. Wretched, another band that's probably kind of sprinkled in here that I love quite a bit. We've seen a couple of times, at least once, I think. But dude, where were we? We tried to, like, some of their albums, man. I like to read the liner notes. I like to know who's doing what solos, who's writing what songs. Huge part of why, if you get the CD, you look at it, everything is kind of defined in that way. Like, I like to know who's doing what, so you kind of get like, you learn like personal flavors and approaches of some of them other people in the band, like as musicians themselves. You're like, oh, that's this guy. You're listening to like Ryan Knight era Black Dahlia Murder. You hear certain songs where there's that lead chorus. You're like, dude, Ryan Knight wrote this song, 100%. You know it.
Yeah.
Like, it's great, man. But like in that regard, when I looked at some of those Wretched albums, I noticed every one of them, like a lot of them, were all kind of written different ways. First album, you kind of have like Steven and is doing majority of it, and Joel's kind of sprinkled in. They move in where they get the new guitar player. What was his name? I know it. John. It was John. It's definitely John. Pretty sure. But they get the new guitar player, and it's kind of a mix between, there's some old songs left over from Joel. There's Steven. There's John Vale, I believe is his name. He's got. They move into Son of Perdition era, and then it's like John writing the album with a little bit of Steven sprinkled in, and then Joel comes back for Cannibal, which they haven't done anything since, and like Joel is majority of that album with a little Steven sprinkled in, and so in that effect, the album is kind of fairly divided certain ways between me and Matt. Like some of it, I believe it's pretty even, man. There's like 3 songs are Matt's, 3 songs are mine. We wrote separately, and then there's some songs sprinkled in from there that are like co-written songs, 2 of them, where we kind of, you know, probably mostly Matt stuff and then me sprinkling in a few of the parts and riffs here and there. But that's where you're getting some of that differential of like, wow, this song sounds totally different in approach from one of these other songs.
And I think that's so
definitely.
important. Sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, yeah, I was just saying, like, yeah, definitely, like when you listen to the songs and like, I mean, if you have like the liner notes from you and you can tell who wrote what, but you can tell there's a little bit of a difference in the writing styles between me and Blake. We haven't done a whole lot of writing necessarily together, but I think that our writing style is similar enough to where we can write on our own and it still be the same band, but it's different enough to where it gives each song its like own unique style and its own flavor, which I think is good. I think it's good to have a little bit of different styles throughout.
No, absolutely. No, it's really important for me as a fan. You know, before a radio DJ, it's important for me as a fan, and it's also what keeps your music spinning on, let's say, my radio show. You know, if I can play a double shot of your music and they both sound exactly the same, you're probably not going to get a double shot on my show because I want to play something different every track. But a band like yours, and especially with this new album, you know, I can play the first song and the last song, and they'll sound like two completely different songs, but it still has your heart and soul in it. And you know, you're listening to Cesspool of Corruption at that point.
Exactly. And I think that's the idea, is like how, you know, you're listening to Black Dahlia Murder. They have a sound, but each album's kind of like looking through a different lens to a degree. It's almost, it's similar to that, but kind of more of a song by song thing per one album. And I think that's what we've tried to work on, is crafting that sound where, like, hey, it's definitely those guys, but they're definitely exploring different influences. And there was a review I read that actually said it referenced the opposite and tried to infer that, you know, it's like, well, I feel these guys were afraid to take more risks. And I'm like, man, I feel like we tried to explore a fairly decent degree. We actually cut some songs that we thought about putting on there that were kind of some in-betweeners.
Cut some parts out of songs.
Cut some parts out of songs, yeah. There was some more to Insidious that we kind of took that out. We kind of rearranged some stuff. There was a song that we had written that was a very, very melodic one that would have kind of been on there that we thought about doing. One that was kind of a slower one. One that was kind of a noodler one, but to see it, there was a degree of approach there where we were like, maybe that's pushing it too far. And apparently, according to somebody, it was. Apparently, in your opinion, not so much. Like, we were able to explore it effectively without, you know, sacrificing that, crafting that kind of core sound. Is a big thing to stand out these days, is to have that sound, because there's always so much with the tech deathy kind of stuff was like, man, they're just kind of stealing all these ideas from all these other guys and it's not very well put together or whatever.
Right.
Boy,
well, and you know, some of these fucking reviewers also need to put themselves in check. It's your sophomore album. You put out an EP, this is your first full length, and not take away from your guys' talent or expertise by any means, but you know, as a band, this is your sophomore album. This is your second experience. So I think you guys are doing a good job at thinking through the process. If you had songs that you took off the album, maybe there was good reason for that. And, you know, sometimes reviewers need to take a break. I also understand getting 100 emails a day from bands that aren't very showcasey, but you guys have that. And whoever said that was probably either drowned and just overstuffed with metal from their email or whatever, or they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, in my opinion.
It's possible. All possible, man.
Well, I mean, to that point, though, I mean, I know what your review Blake is talking about, but it was overall, it was a positive review. That was their only gripe that they had about it. But,
well, that's good.
Yeah, they said it was good. Like, it was a good review. Besides that, but yeah,
I'm also going to say that you guys had the pleasure of worldwide streaming your album on Metal Injection. So, you know, at that point, fuck your review.
Cool. That was cool to see. Yeah, that was cool as shit. I saw that, and Carlos had told us about it before, but yeah, I was like, that's pretty fucking cool, man. Like, Metal Injection's been around for a long time and pretty popular site, so that's pretty fucking badass.
Yeah, and you guys got positive feedback from that. And it featured on Tech Death Tuesday, which is actually a highly regarded part of Metal Injection. And so, yeah, no, sometimes bad press is good press, though. So, and like you said, the review wasn't that bad. It was just one of the negative opinions. So, yeah, take it for what it is. Another thing I do kind of want to ask you about, just so we don't take up too much time, the playthrough video that your homie Rusty Holloway did for you guys. That's a great playthrough video. I'm a fan of playthrough videos. I hate fucking shitty ones, and I might be a little like elitist on playthrough videos, and more just because of my personal taste. Like if you look at Cytotoxin's playthrough videos, I love their playthrough videos. But you look at other bands, and it's just it's just watching some dude sit on the couch play guitar. You guys did a really good job with this one. Rusty Holloway, who did the filming and editing for it, did a fantastic job. I love watching you guys play. And it's for Apparitions of Malevolence. So why don't you guys tell me a little bit about the shoot of the video and some of the ideas behind it?
Oh God, it was a nightmare. It was totally rushed. Like
fucking awesome.
Yeah. Before the album popped a video that got delayed, and I won't drop names for this, but we had contacted somebody we're at least decently acquainted with in the music scene. And just the logistics there also, just like with Carlos for the video guy, it didn't really work out. This guy kind of had some stuff he had to do, and we were kind of a little behind the ball, especially since initially we were going to try to do the video, and that got its initial delays. And man, when we tried to touch base with him when it was about time that was planned, we were going to try to figure some stuff out. It just it didn't work out very well. And so, man, it was Brennan's suggestion that we do Rusty. We played with Rusty. We played with those guys, the Devil's Daydream and all that from down here. It's a lot of local shows back in the day when we were playing just those early days, man. We were playing sometimes 3 times a month easy. Like in months, we were playing all the time, just trying to get out there. And we met a lot of cool people, Rusty being one of them, but he mentioned it. I hit him up. And we ended up working on a schedule that kind of fit within a time frame, man. But it was like a tight, like 2 or 3 week thing, and that was Brennan. Thankfully, Brennan's stuff was already done. Brennan had recorded all of his drums as he was recording them when he redid his drums at home for the album. So that was already done. He had foot stuff, and he just said he didn't want it in there. So we just did kind of upper shots. You get mostly like a cymbal work and stuff. Beyond that, I went 1 week. I went first, and I went and shot all my parts for everything, and the following week it was Mike and then Matt in succession, one day after the other, because Rusty's a day job kind of guy. I believe he's like a master plumber, man, so he's a busy dude, but he's pretty much off on weekends. We got it done real quick, dude, and he did great editing. Like that was kind of the thing, he did all kinds of angles, he got lighting right, he did all kinds of close-up, and he just created a lot to work with. He made it super easy to work with too, very low stress. I mean, initially, I was like, got to play everything really good for Rusty. He gave us a real low gain, like guitar tone to kind of work with. But I mean, dude, we played everything like probably 6, 7, 8 times. At least I did. That was about as much as I did. And he got all these different angles, and I assume something similar for the other guys. But dude, the editing was great. I actually have some other versions that he initially sent, and I noticed when I actually watched the one he put out more, that the one I downloaded initially from my phone, he changed a lot of the angle work up and really got creative with it. And I think it was awesome. I think a lot of that angle work, it was what made it very interesting. And I liked because we just let him go with it. I was like, dude, just do whatever you think is good, and let's see what happens. Because once again, we were kind of in crunch time, and I think that's what made it less boring and a little more interesting. Was that now just that one angle, maybe 2 angle thing, and especially when we're working with like single frame stuff where it's just one guy at a time, as opposed to like a 4 frame split. You see everybody playing the whole time.
That's what. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just saying, like, that's something that I liked a lot and I appreciated, was that because I was the last one to film my part of the playthrough. So when I got there, he was trying to think of new angles to shoot from that he didn't shoot anyone else from before. Mm-hmm. So he was like doing new angles for every person in the band. Like you see a lot of playthroughs, it's just the same angle, like a straight shot or whatever. Like he was literally trying to, like, on the spot thinking of different angles he could shoot from, or like, because he was like, I already did that angle. I need to do something else. I did that one with your brother. Let me think of something else for you. And like, it came out really cool. Like he got some really, really good angles. One that I like a lot is when it's some that he did with me was like he had the camera right above the headstock of my guitar, and you can see like right down the fretboard or whatever. It's like a real artsy type shot, but it came out really, really good. Which I thought it was interesting. It's cool to see everyone in different angles, playing the same thing, but it's not like, you see some playthroughs and everyone's in their own little corner or whatever, which is cool too. But I thought this one came together cool. He did a really good job, and he crunched it together real quick for us too.
That's great. Great turnaround time.
He came through in the came through in the clutch. Yeah,
like 2 days.
2 days, like Mike said. Yeah, it was fast.
I was very pleased when I saw it. I was happy with it. Looks really good. Like
you get to see great parts of Mike playing some sick bass lines that he made sure to hone in on that I wish were a little more prominent on the album. Mike's bass was really popping, and he had some great prominence. I think that we got close to capturing again, but maybe not quite as much, because I think a lot of what he did was more subtle, but like strewn throughout consistently.
I love the bass parts of the video, to be honest with you, because for one, it's a sick bass, dude. That 6-string is nasty. But I think I thought it was perfect because it shows a lot of finger work down on up on the fretboard and finger work down on the bass. So no, I thought he got some great shots of Mike's bass playing.
Thank you. Yeah.
I will say my favorite part of the video. Who plays the green guitar? Sorry, I'm going to ask like that.
That's
me. It's like a neon. It's like a desert yellow is what they call it.
Okay. Well, on my phone today it looked green, but
it does.
The solo work. I don't play guitar again. I'll throw that out there, but it looks so fun to play. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a fucking bitch of a song to play, but the solo work, it looks so like a lot of fun to play. I don't know how else to describe it. I smile every time I watch it. Like, yeah, that part.
Those are not very fun to play. Like playing live, I tend to rush in really heavy to that initial little sweep part you just hummed. The little kind of chorusy sweep with the bar and like dips and stuff like that.
Of course, it's a pain in the ass.
I can tell you, for me, that song is one of the most fun songs to play on the album for me. But then, I mean, I played the rhythm on that song, but that's one of the songs Blake wrote. But for me, it's fun. But
yeah,
I don't know. For him, he's doing all the sweeps and
he's
doing the leads.
It was the first song I ever wrote, and just kind of did it on my own and stuff after having co-written some songs like Insidious and Disfigurement with Matt. That's when I finally was like, I feel like I got a pretty decent feel for what I want to do. It definitely had some more parts to it. I had to kind of cut down and condense, but I tried to make it kind of have some different movements overall, and then have some like catchy parts, like kind of some chorus parts for these different movements. It comes back to that, like kind of approaching it. This was kind of almost do a riff salad, but make it structured. And so
it has a lot of structure at that point in the song. Yeah.
Bridge stuff and all that, and the leads and all that was kind of exploring some of trying how to match some of those weird chord textures we talked about. The bar wax and stuff, that kind of came later. I mean, initially I didn't do that, but once I kind of got a hold of some of these prestiges and I got what I consider to be the superior tremolo system for a floating bridge, man. And the way those Ibanez's are, it allows me to really slap that stuff. And that comes into that kind of weird facelessy kind of stuff. And like Ryan Knight kind of with like how he does some bar manipulations. Arsis, James Malone. Mm-hmm. James Malone actually helped me write some of that solo. He moved down here.
Oh, nice.
And the sweep section, I was trying to figure out how I could work around those chords, and I wasn't really sure. And he this is later in like the main solo, but he kind of showed me how to move within some of the chord structures and like what types of chords they were, so what kind of sweeps I could apply while utilizing certain notes. And so big shout out to James. He's super cool guy. Yeah, I paid him like $40 to come give me an hour lesson. He hung out for 2.5, almost 3 hours, just jamming and shooting the breeze and all that. Awesome guy. But everything in that song came together pretty well, I think. And I'm glad, it made it onto the album and everything. And some of the sweep stuff is difficult to play, but like by the time you get to the solo at the end, it's pretty fun on that one. The solo kind of has more of like a song within a song idea, and that's why I made it a lot longer than some of the other solos. Like when you hear some of Matt's songs, his solos can be a little more right to the point, kind of right to the gut. And he has very clear intent there. And like some of what I did, I try to do that song within a song stuff to make it super interesting. If you notice the rhythms behind it change within certain parts, and like what you hear behind those kind of adjusts. And some of it is fairly basic, but then some of it I tried to explore some really wild stuff like the string skipping, tapping, and all that. Like at the very end of it, that's very Arsis kind of influenced from like some stuff I learned off of We Are the Nightmare. And then there's some very facelessy. That's where the faceless comes back again. I think those bar diffs, and really a guy had mentioned the Thralls of Metal or Thrall of Metal guys that did a YouTube review for us, which I really appreciated because they took the time, man. It was like a 15-minute interview, and it was a review, and it was very in depth. And they talked about it was they call it very flying saucer-esque.
Oh,
and
wow.
You get those weird kind of like hovering kind of sounds with the tremolo on that one. And that was very like I've tried to once again explore some of those weird deathy sounds, but then I threw some of that facelessy stuff I learned off of some of Planetary Duality in there, and just came up with some odd tones, man. But overall, very fun one to play. That's actually the hardest one for me vocally, though. It has one section specifically that is complete. It's so mind numbing with just how much separation of like hands versus this and that. That's one of those moments I told you, why do I do oh.
That's funny. I'm glad I brought it up.
Yeah, that's why I don't do it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So I'm just
like the street cred, man.
That's fucking great. Now we're open as of right now. America's open, and you guys have a CD release party coming up here pretty soon. And as far as I know, if it's still going on, but with I Am Destruction, September 3rd.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. I'm looking at your Facebook, so if my facts are wrong, it's your fault. But yeah, you guys are playing with I Am Destruction. Stephen Mashburn is sick. So are the entire band. But Steven's done some artwork for me in the past for my show. So big shout out to him. But I Am Destruction's killing it right now, and that's fucking sick that you guys are doing your CD release party with them, Cathexis, Asylum, and Corporalia.
It's a big. Yeah, I think that's right.
Fun fact: we played their first show ever at Tomcats.
No
so
shit.
We were on that.
Oh
yeah, I Am Destruction. We played their first show ever out there.
Actually, Mud, Steven, he did the
layout
for the.
Yeah, he did the layout, which what we definitely should touch on at some point is the artwork. We got to get down on that. But Steven he did all that layout stuff for us and kind of organizing. So it was part of the album,
Yeah, awesome. And I do have the CD artwork coming up here in just a second. But yeah, you guys are playing the CD release party with I Am Destruction, Cathexis, Asylum, like I said before. And that's at I can't read the bottom of the where are you guys playing that? Halton's?
Halton Theater.
Okay.
Halton Theater, Halton City.
Awesome. And yeah, fucking great cover. $10 at the door. Fucking doors are at 8. And yeah, CD release party. That is September 3rd. But yeah, let's talk about the artwork, because I'm looking at the artwork right now, and it's great. It kind of reminds me of Thor Ragnarok. If I can MCU geek out for a second, it's the Devil's Anus. But this was done by Justin Abraham, correct? Abraham.
Correct. He's done. He did an Animate Existence Clockwork, Underneath the Melting Sky. He's done some work with some other guys, so some Artisan era dudes as well. I love the guy's art, man. Like, especially it was Underneath the Melting Sky album that I was like, this is the guy I gotta get, man. And it was night and day from having worked with the artist previously on the EP. So you've got kind of a resplash of the EP that was colored in. The original version, black and white, because it was an Indonesian kid out there that we had.
Colorblind.
Yeah, it was colorblind, man. So he did everything in pencil.
Wow.
It was all in pencil. hence the black and white. And we initially had a darker shading of it, where it's much kind of cloudier and darker on the edges and all that. But we really there was a communication barrier there, and we couldn't really get a good high-res scan of it we could work. So we had to go with the second darkest shading. And then finally, Gore House made sure somebody added a little extra, coloration to it finally. Right. But it's kind of a jumping off point of that one is one of the reasons I want to reference that is in the EP, you kind of see a creature initially. Like, obviously, it's kind of got some alien vibes to it. It's kind of got some Lovecraftian vibes to it. I worked with the kid on the concept there. So, like, album cover concept-wise, that's kind of me working with the artist and coming up with some of that stuff. The initial one, the monster is there. I mean, it can be kind of metaphorical in a sense of it's just all the bad parts of humanity kind of manifest to come back. Mm-hmm. I guess you could. A lot of the lyrical themes are very, like, kind of deathy. That's where some of that death comes back into play. They're very social commentary, like personal stuff. A lot of like that spiritual healing era, human, individual, and beyond. Just where it's all very human condition. Like if I could ever explain it in a nutshell. At least for now, because we're kind of exploring some new avenues, I think, down the road, which we can touch on. But initially, it's all about how kind of various factors in society affect the human condition. How does this aspect, how does this amount of control, how does this kind of regulation, stuff like that. So like on the early album, you get technological enslavement, which is cell phones and Skynet is the tagline we used to say it shows for that.
Nice.
But technology gone awry, humanoid form, origins of existence kind of stuff. Eradication of subservience was about complacency, and that's why you see kind of the creature just destroying what's essentially kind of almost a FEMA style camp thing, because in 2012 they were still talking about that shit back then.
Uh-huh.
We were like fucking 21, so but so it's kind of that, but you get to see some great stuff, man. He did do some great stuff with, like, there's a entrails shoot out of, like, his hanging out of his jaw, and there's a guy getting tentacled and all that. But it's all kind of like that.
Got some bloody shit on
bloody shit that got accented with later. So on the new one, we still carry the human condition thing over,
on the new one.
Or the current one, I guess, this time. But now what I wanted to do was make it a little more subtle, like an aftermath scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So now you see the monster anymore. You see parts of it that would hint the tentacle, but you don't see what it's grown to as a whole anymore. It's become something on its own, and obviously something quite impactful. And I think that's kind of what goes back to that, like, human condition, just being affected by stuff in life. You don't really know where it's going to go, how large and out of proportion things can become, whatever. But now you kind of see more of the aftermath, the growth, the creatures, the people strewn up in, like, cocoon gross and everything. And once again, it's just all kind of like we've kind of you reap what you sow. And then the album kind of tells that story very loosely in terms of subject matter, with having to deal with insidious inheritance, the mortality, and, like, the inevitability of death. Like, we all are getting it. So.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally fucking agree. And it's funny because, are we not there already? Like, we're already suffering from all of our fucking bad ways, and not just personally, but as a planet. And I totally follow along with that storyline, because it's and the artwork does represent that in both your albums, to be honest. And I'm sitting here, I'm looking at on Gore House Productions, and I also look at your Bandcamp, where you can see the original artwork, the black and white for your EP, and I see the wonderful job that was done there. I like the revision, and I don't think it really took away too much from the original artist and what he did. But the new cover artwork for Requiems is sick, and some of this flag looks nasty. I'm looking at your merch here on Gore House Productions /store, and the flag is sick, and it's only $15. What the hell? That's a $20 flag. I'm just gonna say it.
Like, Dustin,
hey, now we know it shows.
Dustin did a great job. He was easy to work with. He's a super cool dude, man. And like I said, definitely be working with him again. I've actually snuck him a few demo tracks I've made and be like, hey, just to get you in the mood for like what's coming next, to think about that.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting because I who knows what we're gonna know the next one. Like I said, the lyrics are kind of coming toward maybe a different perspective on that one. We're doing a whole different path of like in terms of how we're kind of creating stuff. So
you know what's funny?
What?
So lyrically, we don't really do like, I guess, our lyrics, not because we're like sending positive message, but we just want to we want to be more creative than that. You know what I mean?
Sure. There's nothing wrong with that in today's day and age. You don't have to cuss and be a dick in your vocals to make it sound brutal and good,
It just sounds like, anytime I hear a band do it, it sounds unintelligent sometimes. But what's funny about that is we don't have any of our lyrics really. And on Spotify, our EP we released has like the little E next to every song, meaning
explicit lyrics. Yeah.
Who the fuck who heard this and like?
All I can think is
read the lyrics. Like,
all I can think is
this is explicit.
The demise of humans in certain songs might have been too graphic for them, but whatever,
Well, maybe we're being stereotyped. It's got to be death metal. It's got to be cussy. Just go ahead and slap that explicit label on there. No need to listen.
I think we try to have the imagery, do a lot of reflecting on the lyrics. Like, I think if you do take the time to read them, albeit they're kind of all like loose narratives and short stories about stuff or horrors of life or technology or science, there's some alien shit in there. Every once in a while, we throw in straight odes to movies. Like once you get technological, definitely has some T2 stuff in there, some Skynet stuff going on.
Right on.
There's kind of a Prometheus alien vibe in humanoid form. With the new one, there's a song that's about Dexter, Hollow Existence.
I fucking love Dexter. I can't wait for the new season.
So read the lyrics to that one. That's all about the struggle. Like, we've all seen the series, and then I've been collecting the books. So I'm on book 5 out of 4 now. And so I have a pretty good character across the board, man. And so the whole album is kind of that like topsy-turvy struggle with darkness. And that's what a lot of the album is about, like that dark side of humanity, struggling with the dark side of humanity. Misanthropy. There's a degree of nihilism and just kind of general hatred for humans because of what I see in society. Disfigurement of idolization was kind of a real bastion at the time. Once again, I probably wrote that in like 2011 when I was going to college a little bit, when I did go to college a little bit. But it was like fucking ripping on Jersey Shore, man. And the idea there was like, how can people like just sit there? It was really reality television, but that was the main thing. How can you sit there and watch people live these extravagant and be like, man, I want to be like them? And I'm like, dude, just go live your life, and you probably have a good time if you really actually go out and you put yourself out there. But like, I just don't understand how people got to idolize people that got famous for doing nothing. When did doing absolutely nothing out of the ordinary from what regular fucking jagoffs do warrant having your show and money? I didn't get it. How do we go from like actual heroes? And this is kind of a far stretch analogy, but like, kids back in the day in the 60s, like, damn, I want to be like Neil Armstrong and walk on the fucking moon and like do some extraterrestrial, like,
right.
Man. Now you got like skanks being like, I just want to be like JWoww and Snooki, and I just couldn't believe it, man. I was like, how did we fall so far as a civilization? It's like, idiocracy is just beginning to take effect, and it drove me nuts at the time and got under my skin. So, to me, the way the culture moved, it just kind of disfigured idols. It was a disfigurement of idolization.
I'm with you. And what do? You write a death metal song about it, goddammit.
We don't swear. We just write really pointed lyrics about our opinion on stuff or how we perceive the degradation of man. And occasionally, horror movies we love.
And there's always horror to fall back on as well. No, I agree. But no, I love it. Guys, I appreciate that you didn't just throw a 2-page snippet in there. You have a full booklet layout. SMG Designs did a great job on the CD layout, and you have the lyrics in there. Thank you. I hate it because as a internet radio DJ, I've been forced into the buy your shit online, get the MP3s, stream it. I miss the days that CDs were the only media, you know, like it's funny to see cassettes coming back. I don't agree with that media because that was just a pain in the ass when a cassette. Wait, when your player ate your tape, you were like, "What the fuck? No!" And it just destroyed your fucking record.
I was cool with cassettes, but I could tell you the CDs. I think all of us collect. Mike still gets CDs. Yeah. He's getting vinyl.
I mean, cassettes are cool for like a car,
for collector stuff. But I think the album sounds excellent on.
If you have a car that has a cassette player,
right? But no, I appreciate I appreciate the fact that you guys put an actual booklet in there. You know, and it wasn't just a paper with the album art on it, and on the back it said your names. You know?
To me, that's one of the best parts about buying a physical CD is like you get it home. Well, I mean, sometimes you open it in your car, like say you went to the store and bought it, or you bought it at a show or whatever. One of the best parts is opening it up and then immediately like looking through the liner notes, reading the lyrics, seeing like if there's songwriting credits, who did what, reading the credits of the album, like who produced it, who mixed it, you know, all that stuff, looking at the band thing, stuff like that. Like you don't get all that when you just stream it or illegally download it, whatever. Like to me, buying the physical copy, not only are you supporting the band more, but it also feels like you're like more connected to the piece of art in your hand. You know what I mean? Like to the band.
Yeah.
You're more connected to the band in a sense. You know what I mean?
And it's great for people like me as a fan. I love the band thank yous because that back in the day, like in the early 90s when death metal was, you know, still raw and underground, that's how I found out about new bands, was the bands thinking of other bands. And as a media personnel, like you said, all the production credits are in there, all the credits for mix and mastering and artwork. Like all I have to do with the CD is open the booklet, and all of my research is right here. But when I'm doing somebody that only has digital output, now I got to go on to Metal Archives, and then I got to check out their Facebook page, which nobody fills out correctly anymore.
Right. And even on Metal Archives, they don't even have all that stuff sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, it started to fall lapse there. I mean, dude, we almost went the full mile, but it was like we run out of space. We were going to be like, all right, the band plays all these instruments and brands, and just be like, it's just so you know, this is what we like. But my God, like it started to just be so spacious that we had a lot to say, man. A lot to say. We had a lot of catching up to do with this one.
Well, it's great. The album is fucking wonderful, man. From start to finish, from distribution. Big shout out to Carlos over at Gore House. I'm friends with Carlos. We've been working together for a couple of years now, and he's great. Gore House is awesome with distribution and shit like that. And the music is fantastic, but the whole package is badass, and the merch is great. We are running out of time, but I want you guys to really promote where we can find you and the merch and all that, from Bandcamp, Facebook to GoreHouseProductions.com, all of that. Go ahead and spit your wares.
Well, Gore House Productions is going to have probably the most up-to-date merch if you go to their merch store.
Mm-hmm.
It has T-shirts, like you said, there's flags, CDs. We've
patches.
Yeah, we got some patches.
Sets.
All right, I'm going to tell you this right now. The patches trip me out because of the Pentagon shape. I was like, I swear to God, I was like, is that like a home plate? But then I realized it's the wrong shape for that. But I was like, oh, it's patch. So you guys actually have a pretty unique shape to your patch as well. It's not just cookie cutter. Rectangle.
Oh, that's badass right there. Yeah.
We like
more
with that.
What else?
I mean, we
got our Facebook. I don't remember what our actual like.
I believe it's just like Cesspool of Corruption official.
Yeah, it's Facebook.com Cesspool of Corruption official. You can find you guys on Bandcamp, Cesspool of Corruption official at bandcamp.com.
We're on Instagram too. It's just Cesspool _of_ corruption. I don't know how to take the underscores out. I made that like 6 years ago.
I think they just put them in there. I think to
Yeah,
have an
I
Instagram,
think
you
I
have
did
to
it.
have that shit.
we've got.
I think I did it back in the day because I thought it looked cool, but now I think it looks stupid. But I don't know how to fix it. So
We've got
I don't know.
the Instagram, we've got a Twitter, which we're kind of trying to figure out how to do metal stuff on there.
I
But
fucking hate
most
Twitter, dude.
Instagram, just Facebook.
Same.
You have our own Bandcamp. There's the Gore House Bandcamp. Hit that up. Their web store. We do have a big cartel that, like, once we kind of get more merch together and this and that, I might like kind of refire up and restock and all that. And that just direct from band stuff. Generally, beyond that, we get it from people at shows and all that. So I'd say we hit up Gore House for the meantime, and we'll have what we can. Hopefully, if people hit Gore House up enough, we can get more merch done. Like we talked about wanting to do like basketball shorts, some like snapbacks. Carlos had maybe mentioned tank tops and all that if we can catch the season right. So I like to do hoodies. I mean, it's sky is the limit there, but as long as everybody kind of is checking them out, we can kind of continue to keep exploring those avenues with him. It's all about, actually getting some reception to a degree and getting people interested in the band.
Nice, dude. Well, Carlos always hooks me up. As a matter of fact, I usually get the CD before he even tells me the promo is out. And so big shout out to Carlos. He always hooks me up, and that's how we got together. So I appreciate you guys taking some time. Don't hang up right after we end here because I want to talk to you off air. But thank you very much for hanging out with me, guys. Really appreciate it. New album kicks ass, man.
Thanks
for having us.
Thank you for having us, man. Appreciate it.